Hello there, Fiveable community. I am Pam Andrews, and I'm excited to be talking with you today about financial aid. I want to make sure you can hear me okay. So if you can just type hi, maybe where you're joining this live stream from, but if you could just type something in the chat, that way I know you can hear me, and we're going to jump right in and get started. Okay, sounds good. So let's just keep going here. So a few housekeeping items. The first, if you have a question, right below there's an ask a question button. If you would type your question there instead of the chat, because the chat's going to continue to scroll and I may not see it, and I want to make sure I see your questions. So please type your questions in the chat box. The other question, I may ask a question just to maybe assess what you know about financial aid or whatever we're talking about. So if that's the case, right in the middle, you will see a number pop up for the poll. At this point, I don't have a poll listed, but I may throw one in later on. So let's jump in to today's topic on understanding financial aid. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, great. So today I'm going to talk about understanding financial aid, and I'm going to give a broad overview of what financial aid is and why it's important. And then I'm going to go specific with 2 school examples to help you discover where you can learn more about financial aid at a school, on a school level, based on the 2 main categories that I'm going to talk about. Again, you can connect with Fiveable on Twitter, on Instagram, and their YouTube page, and it's at Think Fiveable. So just what is financial aid? We hear this term a lot when it comes to college admissions and college planning. And a lot of times students will not have a clear understanding of what financial aid is. And it's really important to know what it is, because when you know what it is, you know where to look for it, you know how to get it, you know what types you want, what types you want to maybe stay away from or have very little of. And so lingo is everything when it comes to applying for colleges, because when you have a common understanding or a shared sense of language, then everyone's on the same page. So what the school is saying, what the financial aid office is saying, is what you're understanding. So it's really important to understand just what financial aid is. In a nutshell, financial aid is money that comes from the federal, state, school, or private sources that help pay for college. That's basically it. And those are just sources. So those are your main sources. So it's the federal government, and then below that, state, and then your school. And when I say school, I mean your college or your university, and then private sources. And we'll get into that. All of that's designed to help you pay for college. And financial aid covers expenses such as tuition, fees, room and board, books, supplies, and transportation. It can also pay for other related expenses such as a computer or expenses to travel home. So all of those expenses are what we call the cost of attendance, or the COA. So sometimes students will just focus on the tuition, but you really have to understand the entire cost to attend that school. And that's what's called the cost of attendance. So again, it's tuition and fees and room and board. And that's your meal plan and where you're sleeping, and maybe your activities fees and technology fees and computer, and then travel back and forth. If you live outside of the state or live quite away or away from school or quite a distance, you have to include that into your cost of attendance. So it's everything associated with attending school. And financial aid is designed to help you pay for that. So there are 2 main types of financial aid. The first is self-help aid, and the second is gift aid. So I'm going to go back to self-help aid. With self-help aid, this is money that you typically have to either one, pay back or do something to get. And I'll explain the difference in doing something to get with self-help and gift aid in just a second. Let's first talk about money you have to pay back. Those are your loans. So you apply for the loans, whether they're federal loans given at the federal level, and we'll get into that a little bit, whether they're private loans, parent loans, but that's money that you use for school, but you're responsible for paying that back along with the interest on that loan, okay? So that's money that you have to do something or you have to pay it back. The other type of self-help aid is called work study. Now, when it comes to work study, that's money that you don't have to pay back, but you do have to do something in order to get it. So when you complete your paperwork, the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, when you complete that, it's going to generate a number at the very end called the expected family contribution, or the EFC. And all of this is what's given on a report called your student aid report. And sometimes they call that SAR. I know this feels like alphabet soup, all these letters, right? And so when you get that number, it's going to, the school will then get your report. And when you get your award letter back from the school, they're going to list the amount of loans and the amount of work study and maybe some of the other types of financial aid that I'll talk about in just a minute. What I want you to know when it comes to that work study type, it's not automatically given. A lot of times students think, oh, okay, well, I automatically get this amount. No, this is the maximum amount that you're eligible to receive. You have to work for it in order to get it. And these are jobs through your campus. Some are on-campus jobs, and in some cases, they're actually off-campus jobs that are related to your career or your major, because some schools have partnerships with local businesses and industries, specific industries in their region where students can do work study assignments. So I really want to make sure that, number one, you understand in this big category called self-help aid, there are loans and there are work study opportunities. The loans I have to pay back with interest. The work study, although my financial aid award letter will tell me how much I'm eligible to receive, that's the maximum, and I have to work to get it. And the way it typically works is just like any other job. You're going to go to work, you'll get your pay. It's typically either every 2 weeks, or some schools it's once a month, but that check is made payable to you. Now you can make arrangements to have that check go directly to any of your cost of attendance expenses. So it can go towards your tuition, your room and board, your fees. But typically those checks come right to you, and it's your responsibility to cash the check or deposit the check and pay for your tuition, or pay for your books, or pay for your school fees, pay for some type of expense related to school. Okay. Again, I think the most important part that I really want you to get when it comes to work study is that you have to apply for it. So you need to find out the department on campus that has the jobs, the work study jobs, and apply for it, and and inquire about payment. Now, gift aid, that's the kind that we like, which is why I saved it for last. And that's the free money. Now, I say free, not that you don't have to do anything to get it, but I mean free in terms of you don't have to pay it back. And that comes in the form of scholarships and grants. So let's talk, we'll talk about grants first. So grants are free money based on your need. So after you complete your FAFSA and you get the expected family contribution, then that data goes to the schools that you list on your FAFSA. So the schools will do a calculation, and they'll determine, their cost of attendance, and then any money that you're going to be awarded, and loans and work study, things like that. The difference is what's called your unmet need. Okay. So sometimes in the grouping of financial aid award, you'll see grants. I'm going to give you a good example in a second, but you'll see grants. So that's money. You don't have to do anything to get it. You're qualifying based on your need. And need is a variable. What your need may be at one school may be very different at another school, because it's a factor. It's a variable. It changes based on the cost of attendance at a school, because the fixed is your expected family contribution. That stays the same. But at one school, if the cost of attendance is much higher, then your need is going to be greater or could be greater. Whereas another school, you may not have as much need. So that's a variable amount. And as we get into sources, you'll be able to see where that need money comes from. Okay, so that's money you do not have to pay back. That's money that we like. When it comes to grant money, you really don't have any control over what you get and how much you're awarded, other than typically the FAFSA triggers it at definitely the federal level and then the state level. So the main big grant that students hear a lot about is called the Pell grant. So you don't have to do anything other than, it's based on your family's profile, your family's financial profile, all that's answered in the, when you complete the FAFSA, which will determine whether or not you're eligible for the Pell grant. But there are other grants as well. And there are also grants at the state level. And again, typically those are triggered when a student submits the FAFSA, the federal form. Then it depends on your state, but some states will receive that. They'll begin to, you'll be awarded out of a state pot of money. Different states have different application processes and deadlines for qualifying for state need-based aid, but many states have money available for students. And I'll show you an example in just a second, okay? Now, again, back to the second one, which under gift aid, scholarships, this, you have a little bit more control. And what I mean by control is that you're able to do the work, do the research, pull together a package that, especially if it's an essay, where it's grammatically correct, where you're answering your essay prompts or the essay question, where you're meeting the deadline, where you're hitting the word count. So there's some things that you can do to improve your odds of winning a scholarship. Whereas, the loan amount, that max will be what it will be, and the work study amount will be what it will be, and your grants will be what they will be. But scholarships, that's really up to you. Now, you can't decide whether or not you win. Of course, there's a committee of judges who makes that decision, but you do have some say-so in whether or not you apply and the kind of effort you put forth in your application. So that one I really like, again, because it's up to you and it's money you do not have to pay back. So I went through grants, and I went through scholarships and work study and loans. So now let's talk about some of the sources of financial aid. And I'm going to look at three big sources. The first is the federal government. And again, the way that the federal government is alerted, and it's really done through the school. So the schools get the pot of money, and then they decide based on the data that you submit when you complete the FAFSA and the schools that you put on there. So when you do that and you hit that submit and you get your copy of your student aid report, then that data goes out to the schools and they begin to do their thing and work on their end and work on your financial aid award package. So the money comes from the federal government, but the decisions and the work is done at the school level. And that's really important to understand. There's also money at the state level. Many states have many different types of state programs that fund, that provide financial aid money, whether it's scholarships or grants. And I'll show you an example in just a moment. But there is money at the state level. Some of it is if you are attending, you live in that state, so you reside in that state and you attend school in that state. And some may be if you reside in that state and maybe you attend a partner school outside of this state, where they have that exchange agreement. So it just depends on the school, where you live, and what the requirements are for that particular state grant. The third source are private sources. These are all of your private individual scholarships, and they're on national, regional, and local level. So kind of think of like an inverted triangle, kind of wide in terms of scope and reach. And then it kind of narrows into local, those in your backyard, those in your own community. So again, this could be from the Coca-Cola scholarship, many students have heard about, Burger King, some of those very large, the Jack Cook Kent Foundation scholarships, those very large scholarship programs, to maybe regional programs, down to more smaller private scholarships. such as maybe your local bank or your utility company, or maybe a local restaurant hosts a scholarship. They provide a scholarship, or maybe you're a part of a club or some type of after school program, and maybe they have a scholarship for students who have participated in their program or volunteered at their program. So there are all kinds of scholarships for all kinds of students and with all kinds of circumstances, backgrounds. So it's not just for students who score high, on their SAT, ACT and have like near perfect GPAs, but there are some based on your attributes, your ethnicity, your heritage, your location, geography, where do you live, your special skills. So I like to share that because a lot of times students think that there are only certain types of scholarships for certain types of students, if you're athletic, but there are all kinds of scholarships for students. So again, these are some places where there is money. And the reason why it's important to understand this is because you begin to look for money in these different locations. Okay, so first let's talk about how, and I mentioned this a little bit with financial aid. How is financial aid calculated? So at the federal level, it's called federal methodology. At the federal level, your expected family contribution, or your EFC, is calculated on the FAFSA. And if you are a high school senior, you will complete that anytime after October 1, or your family will complete that after October 1. And that will then be used for your following fall admissions, okay? It's going to look back at financial data 2 years prior. So, it's going to look at your tax returns from 2 years prior, and it's going to look at other income, sources of income, assets, asks all these questions. And it's not difficult to complete. There's some documents you should have prior to sitting down, but it could take maybe 20 minutes to maybe an hour, not long, if you have everything you need and you're ready to go and whatnot. However, if you're not a senior, or if you are a senior even right now, and let's say you're building your college list, you're beginning to think through, and I'm going to give you two very specific examples in a moment, and you say, I wonder what my EFC is. Like, if I were to apply right now today, what would my expected family contribution be? Well, a very good tool is called the FAFSA Forecaster, and it's exactly FAFSA, the number forecaster.com. And when you go to that website, you're going to put in all of that information, and it's going to give you an estimate on your EFC. So this helps you kind of gauge or get a feel for what it could be, kind of the ballpark, so that when you actually do apply after October 1, you're going into it a little bit more informed. You can do this your freshman year, your sophomore year, and your junior year. Okay. And it's important to do it before the senior year. You want to do it early so that you know what that number is, and you can begin to develop a plan to pay for college. Now, it's also calculated on an institutional level. So there are a couple of ways. There is, I'm going to focus on one. So we are going to look at financial aid on the institutional level in terms of scholarships and grants, okay? And what a college will do, again, it's going to take that information that you provide as well as the pool of money that they have, and all of that information will be provided on your financial aid award letter. Okay, and so a tool that we'll use in this case, and I'm going to show you both of these. I'm going to give you two real life examples to walk you through understanding these tools, because I think it's important to have the tools to do the job. But in this case, you want to use the college's NPC, or net price calculator, their net price calculator, to determine an estimate of your financial aid. Now, it's not the exact amount because there are so many other variables that can come into play. However, it gives you a great estimate, again, on what you may expect to get from the school. And again, if you've got time on your side, if you're in the 9th, 10th, or 11th grade year, that's a great time as you're thinking through schools. Go ahead and plug in some of these numbers in their net price calculators to see, oh, okay, this is what I could expect to receive. And then I'm going to show you, once we go into it, it'll make a lot of sense. But what if my GPA goes up? What if my test score goes up? How much more money could I expect to earn? So that as you are studying for tests and as you're thinking through your coursework and you're working hard on your grades, you really have a target in mind. You're not just kind of taking the test, not knowing, what do I want to score? But if you know it takes this particular score to earn this particular scholarship, then you have a target to work towards. So now let's look at two colleges' net price calculators. I think you guys can still see my page. Okay. So I just picked two random colleges. We're going to look at the University of Memphis, and we're going to assume that we are a resident, that we live within the state of Tennessee, okay, in this model. So this is using the net price calculator to get a feel for what we could earn in terms of money from the school. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to go in the FAFSA forecaster. There it is. Okay. Just so you can see what that looks like. So again, the FAFSA forecaster will help you get a feel for what your EFC would be. So it's going to estimate your eligibility for federal student aid. So that's that website. And I will drop that link in the chat so that you'll have it. And you'll just go through it and complete it. And I won't click to go through that, but you'll just click to go through it. And it's very easy to go through. And again, if you're not in your senior year, even if you are, you want to go ahead and complete that to kind of get an idea of the amount of aid, federal aid, that you would be eligible to receive. Okay. So now let's take a look at financial aid at the school level. So I just picked two random schools. We're going to pretend that we live in Tennessee and we're applying to the University of Memphis, and I'm using this school's net price calculator. Typically, net price calculators are found either under the financial aid section. Yeah, this one was found under financial aid, which or sometimes under admissions. But whenever you're in doubt of anything, always look for the little magnifying glass in the search bar and just simply type. You can't go wrong with that. So you could type for net price calculator and find it that way. So I'm just going to go through and just plug in some fictitious numbers and see what we get, okay? Let's kind of go through what it says here about the calculator. It's designed specifically for high school seniors preparing for college. But again, if you're not a senior, you want to use this to help you plan ahead, okay? This calculator will provide an estimate. I think it's really important to understand it's just simply an estimate of the net price to attend the University of Memphis or to attend that particular college or university. The reason why it's important to understand net price, there's the sticker price. That's the price that you see on the website, maybe in the brochure. That's the price that they say that it costs. And then they start, kind of deducting, boom, boom, boom. The net price is usually lower, and that's the price that you will have to pay, okay? It's very rare. I mean, there are some students who do actually pay the full cost of attendance, but it's really important to understand financial aid. And last week I talked about finding colleges that fit, and especially a strong financial fit. So if you didn't look at that last week's or the first in this series, definitely check that out, because I talk about financial fit. And this is one of the pieces of financial fit. It's really important to understand that as you're building your list, you're taking a look at schools that are going to be generous towards you based on your profile, your grades, your family's financial positioning, and take that cost of attendance down, lower it down so that you have a net price that you can work with, okay? The calculator does not represent a final determination or an actual award. So your actual award will be given when you receive your financial aid award letter. That's typically after you apply, and then after you've been accepted, then you'll get the financial aid award letter. Okay, and that tells you, and it's for 1 year. So it tells you for each, for that particular upcoming year, what you can expect in terms of scholarships, grants, work study loans, things like that. Okay. And the estimate is for first year full-time freshmen entering during the fall semester, and which is really important, because if you're a transfer student, it could be a little bit different. If you're entering in the spring or maybe a summer term, it could be a little bit different. So these are some of the assumptions that typically go into many of the schools' net price calculators. So let's get started. Okay. So it's kind of the welcome to the net price calculator. I won't read all that, but it has a lot of information. And I'm going to pretend my name is Charlie Brown, but people just call me Chuck, right? So I'm just Chuck Brown. And when you're asked the question, who's answering, it's either you, the student, or the parent, or maybe a counselor. You can always click on the down arrow to see who it is. So in this case, I'm going to pretend, it's me. If you ever get stuck, and this is great on a lot of the forms, there's always a little question mark. And if you hover over it, you can see it gives a detailed explanation of what they're looking for in that particular question. Let's say I'm currently in the 12th grade. I'll just use that as an example. Okay. And of course, you would need some financial information to accurately fill out this form. So it's telling you in advance, the parent and the student's tax return. So if you file the tax return, your parents filed a tax return. So maybe you have had a part-time job as a student and you filed taxes, and your parents, and W-2 forms for the most recent year, any records of any untaxed income and benefits received, and the mortgage, bank statements, investment statements. So you'll need to have those documents to fill it out, just like you would when you're completing a FAFSA for real in your senior year after October 1. Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sign in that. Let me go back. It asked me if I wanted to sign in using, so like the net price calculator is a product of the College Board, and you're familiar with the College Board. The College Board administers the SAT. Oh, there we go. And so if you have set up and also the AP, so I'm sure you have a College Board account because most likely, you're in Fiveable, you're taking your AP exams. And so it will pull your information in from your College Board account. I don't want to use that one in this case. So let me just go ahead and put Chuck back in here. And Chuck is the one answering it. And in the 12th grade, I'm going to answer no. I clicked yes. I'm going to answer no because I don't want to pull any data in on that one. Okay. So year, let's say, let me see, class of 2020 would probably fall around 2001 or 2002, maybe, no, 2002. So it's going to be, I'm going to put 2002. Marital status would be never married, no dependent children, not an orphan or ward of the court. And just go through and complete this. Parents' marital status, I'll say they're married. The older parents, let's say, use something close to when I was born. That'll make it super easy, right? I'll just pick something right around there. And let me see, since this is Tennessee, your parents' legal state of residence. Yeah, so we're going to go with Tennessee so that you can see some of that. Oopsie, I hit Vermont. You can see some of that state-based money. And number of people in the household. So let's say it's Chuck, and Chuck has a younger sister and a younger brother, and then 2 parents. So that's a household of 5. And number of people planning to attend. Well, let's say I'm the oldest, so I'm the only one attending. I've got 2 younger siblings, or Chuck Brown has 2 younger siblings. And so there will just be 1 in college at the time. So the type of forms file will most likely be a 1040. So we'll just do 1040. I'll just use big, easy numbers to make the math very easy. So I'll just say $100,000. And I'll use, maybe they pay $10,000 in taxes. And one parent makes, instead of saying 50-50, I'll say maybe 60-40. So one parent makes $60,000 and the other 40, because we got to get to that 100, right? Okay. Their interest, and again, I would have all this document with me to go through it, but I'll just say dividend income, I'll just say 5,000. And then how much do they have? They don't have a business, so we'll say $0. And they didn't receive any educational tax. I'm the oldest kid going to school, so there's no educational tax. And let's say my parents' untaxed income, their retirement plan contributions that they make I'll just use a number. I'll just make it a different number. I'll say 7,000. Okay. Alrighty. Current amount in the account, let's say, I'll just use a number $3,000 in the checking account. Now, again, I'm going to use the state of Tennessee just so you can see some state aid. And now, again, this is important. So the first part was about the parent. Whether the parent is filling out this form or the student, it's always the parent first. And this part is about the student. So this is about Chuck Brown. Okay, so this is Chuck Brown's information. So let's say Chuck didn't work. So it's 0, didn't hold a job or anything. 0, just to make it super simple. And he has like nothing in savings. Oh, we'll give him $500 birthday money. Okay. Alrighty. So now housing will be on-campus housing. Let's say the GPA is, Chuck is a good student. We'll say 3.75. And then the ACT score, I'll say a 30. And let's see what we get. We'll calculate that. It's crunching the numbers. So the estimated price would be about $20,000. So this shows you again the cost of attendance. This is your sticker price, okay? So this is the price that's published. It's on the website. It's in the brochures. This is kind of the price where everyone starts. Then based on the aid, the financial aid awarded, it's estimated that the net price, that reduced price, is about $20,000, $20,400. And let's take a look at where some of that's coming from. So here we go. In this case, we see a grant, which is gift aid. So this is money that Chuck does not have to pay back. His family doesn't have to pay back. And this is a state program. So the state of Tennessee aid program will award $5,000, which has now brought that down, the cost of attendance minus that. In this case, we see that there are no scholarships mentioned. It doesn't mean that Chuck Brown may not be awarded a scholarship. There may be a department scholarship or some campus-wide scholarship, or maybe we need to bump the GPA up or the test score up a bit more, but it's just not showing it at this point. So it doesn't mean that this student necessarily won't receive one. It's just that in this calculation, it's not listed, okay? And it's important to research, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper in that in an upcoming live stream about those money sources. But again, this is a great example of gift aid and how much gift aid and how that brings the net price down, you know, what the family, the cost, what it would cost to attend, from the true cost of attendance down with those deductions based on aid. Okay, and it's saying that based on the information provided, parents should be able to contribute $17,000, and students will be able to contribute about $100, and that's probably from that $500. And so that's the amount, and then the loan amount would be $5,500. And again, some schools can allow you to save the amount, and some don't. Let's go back. I want to modify answers. So just want to see what happens. What if we play around with this number a little bit? And I'm going to go down to that section where, what if, I'm just curious if this one calculates. So let's say we have a perfect and that, and let's see what happens there. So what I did was, it didn't change it. So this one is not calculating scholarships. I do have an example that will show it. Because each school's net price calculator is different. Some only show grants and loans, so gift aid and self-help aid, and some will show scholarships as well. And you'll see that example in a minute. So this, again, is a great way for the schools on your list to see, you know, what you may be expected to pay based on the data off of your FAFSA, the financial data. Okay, I'm going to use this example. So Keystone College, which is in Pennsylvania, this net price calculator is slightly different. And I want to show you these two examples because each calculator is very different. The key is I want you to calculate it. I want you to sit down, crunch the numbers, and see what you get. So this one looks at both freshmen and transfer students. So I'm an incoming freshman. And this one is going to be, let's get started. Let's see what if this one's pulling in financial data. Okay, so this one is going to look at my scholarship qualifications. So let's say I did not take the SAT, but I did, or the ACT. Let's say I did the SAT, and let's say I scored, I'll say 1210, just totally make up a number. Okay, and my GPA is a 3.4. And then we'll click on that and see what the results are, what type of financial aid I can get. Okay, so congrats, I would qualify for the presidential scholarship, which would be $13,000. Most likely that is renewable, which means, as long as I maintain the GPA and the requirements, then it would most likely be $13,000 each year. We'll dig more into that in an upcoming live stream, but I just wanted to kind of give you a quick overview. So about 13,000. Let's see what happens if we actually improve our scores. I don't want to email results. Let me see. How do I go back? Okay, let me click the back button. So I think I did 12, 10, and 3 something. Yes. Oh, it's still there. So this time, let's say it's a 1310. Let's see what happens. So it was 13,000 before. Let's see what we get if it's 100-point difference just on the test score. Let's see if that 13,000 becomes more. Oh, 15,000. So now it's another tier of scholarship. Like the first one was called that one. The other one was presidential. This was academic distinction, and it's 15,000. That's an extra $2,000 by improving my test score by 200 points. So the reason why I shared this example is because as you're building your list, if you've got time on your side and you can study for your test, you're maybe in your second or third year of high school, you have not hit your senior year, and you're thinking through schools, go ahead and play with some schools' net price calculators to see, if I score this and I have this GPA, what could I get? What's a ballpark? So it's a great way to help you plan and to help you, the student, really understand financial aid and the sources of money. So again, this is a scholarship. It does not have to be paid back. This is what's called a merit-based scholarship. You earn this based on your grades and your test scores. It looks like the test score is the one that really bumped it up. Okay. Let me go back here. Okay, great. So we took a look at 2 colleges' net price calculators, and I'm going to open it up for questions. Before I do that, I just wanted to mention the next 3 live streams. Next week, same time, same place, I'm going to talk about need-based and merit-based aid. And after the following week, I'm going to talk about SuperScore and why does it matter. And then finally, closing out this series about talking about using your summer experiences to win scholarships. Okay. Great. So are there any questions? I don't see any questions. So I'll just wait for a moment to see if there are any questions about financial aid, the types of aid, the sources, where do they come from? How can a student use some tools? What are some tools a student can use to calculate approximate aid and maybe have a plan to improve their scores in the upcoming year to bump some of that aid up that you can control? Any questions? Well, great. Well, thank you for joining me for another live stream. I will see you next week. We're going to dive a little bit deeper, talking more about need-based and merit-based aid, financial aid, and scholarships. Bye.